The last full week of the 2019 Wyoming Legislative Session just finished. And as we wrap up our Look at Legislature series, today we're joined by Senator Stephan Pappas. Looking back at last week, what stands out for you?
Usually we're in panic mode in the last week. This week it went surprisingly smooth.
Now, you're a true Cheyenne native. You were born here. You even went to East High School. I know you left to go to college, but then you returned to become an architect and eventually even a general with the Wyoming Air National Guard.
I enjoy Cheyenne. When I went off to school, after my first year, I thought, you know, I want to live in Wyoming.
You sponsored Senate File 143, which would have required high school students to take an exam about the U.S. and Wyoming constitutions. I understand that your goal was to make sure that they were fully prepared to participate in government.
That's so true. I have a passion for education. Our young people especially have no understanding on how to be a good citizen, how the government works, differences in all the types of local, state, and federal government. They don't understand those things.
I'm a government reporter, so I understand how critical it is.
Extremely critical. The bill allowed the test to be taken anywhere from the 9th grade to the 12th grade, and it could be taken as many times as possible.
This bill was postponed indefinitely. What were the reasons why?
The reason it was postponed indefinitely was basically pushback from the education community, both teachers and administrators. And they do such great work. You know, they feared that there was just additional burden on the student, additional burden on testing. And if it is a burden, it's a burden that's well worth having.
Do you plan to resurrect this bill in a future session?
It may have to be tweaked because, you know, twice now it has gone down in defeat. But I think it's a worthwhile topic and it still needs to be pushed.
The deadline for interim topics for legislature was last Tuesday. Now I understand that that list will be posted soon.
Interim topics are the topics selected by the Management Council to study during this time that we're not in session.
How can residents weigh in on the interim topics?
You know, once the topics are selected, they can always contact their legislator.
And I can attest to the fact that legislators really do want to hear from residents.
We're not these prima donnas that maybe you might think about in other forms of government. In Wyoming, we're a citizen legislature. I mean, we're just everyday Joes, right? I want to hear from people. Remember, we're public servants, okay?
Well, thank you so much for coming on our show and giving us this update.
Oh, thank you, Katherine. It's just been a pleasure visiting with you.
Now for our bill tracker. Here's a glance back at some of the bills that we covered during this Look at Legislature series. Senate File 127 makes fleeing the police a felony under certain circumstances. It passed all readings in both chambers of Congress. House Bill 271 would have made arbitration between firefighters and appropriate officials of cities, towns, and counties non-binding. It died in the House. House Bill 115 would have granted immunity to a Good Samaritan who entered a vehicle in specific emergency scenarios to help a person or animal. It also failed in the House. And Senate File 72 passed in both chambers of Congress. It prevents the destruction of rape kit evidence without a court order. The sponsor, Senator Affie Ellis, was inspired by her college experiences to promote this bill. She was troubled by the lack of support that women she knew received after suffering a sexual assault. Some victims have expressed their relief that this bill will protect them once it becomes the law. It unlocks the doors to justice when a victim delays in reporting an attack.